they be provisioned? And obviously they can be either at the simplest, commercially provisioned or provisioned in a public way. By the way, I like to think that actually the distinction is not between public and private, but there's one more category that's very important, which is civic. And by the way, I always think of Barcelona as one of the best places to discuss civic issues. You have such a strong civil society with various associations running programs. I am also affiliated with Wikimedia, which is another example of a platform that's not public or private, right? It's neither a company or a state, it's a community. So I think we're simplifying here things a bit by saying public or private. There are a lot more shades to it, and I would single this one thing out, civic. It might be interesting for your conversation and for the local context you have. But broadly speaking, and I don't want to go here into face, another example you could probably use is GitHub, but Hugging Face is dedicated to these public solutions. And the third example of a higher level where we're starting to see provision of something that is really public, but it's only partial, is that, for instance, now in Europe there's a big drive to do public computing. And you met last week Albert, who works at the Barcelona Supercomputing Center, so I'm pretty sure I don't need to tell you more. They are one of the several so-called AI factories. So these computing nodes are publicly funded. In the case of Barcelona, run by a public research institution. Of course, with compute, you don't get a full public AI, but as Felix explained, you get this very important layer sort of secured. And maybe it was discussed last week because the Barcelona Center where Albert works had an important role to play there, but it's a project by Mozilla. It's a project to collect voice data. Voice data is very important to build voice AI. And as with many cases in the AI world, you don't need any more voice data for English language and maybe also, let's say, for French or Spanish, but if you start thinking about Catalan or Polish, and even more so, for instance, for hundreds of African languages, the case gets very much more complicated. So we're facing some kind of a new divide where, you know, the newest solutions are not built for our languages. The solution that Open Voice build this sort of community platform and encourage various communities to share voice data, and this has happened. So a very, again, interesting example where we're not talking yet about the whole public AI system. There's nothing to use there, but something very useful, in this case, data sets, is being provisioned in a public way. So the platform actually is run by a foundation. There is what you can call some kind of collective governance, and it has a clear public function. The idea is really to empower. This is to kind of try to explain a relatively complex space. There's a huge discussion today what it means to be sovereign. Maybe it's actually an interesting conversation you can have in the room. But there's one version that I would say is sort of very bold, you know, almost brutal, and it says being sovereign is controlling everything, owning everything, being able to protect ourselves, to defend ourselves, maybe even push against others. This is a vision, for example, that has driven for a long time this group called BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. They say we want to be sovereign, so we need to build our own solutions, we need to do things on our own. This is not a very good vision of public AI to say everyone needs to own their own infrastructure, although you could think that way, because if you talk a lot about public provision, there's nothing stopping you from doing it on your own, for example, as a nation. And actually what's interesting is that this idea of sovereign AI is pushed very hard by NVIDIA, basically states to buy a lot of hardware from NVIDIA with this argument, you will be bold, you will be powerful, you will control your AI destiny. So I think this is very important to distinguish that with public AI, we understand sovereignty differently. We understand this as ability of citizens, communities, and states to have control over technology, but this control is based on principles of democracy and also on cooperation. Maybe this is something worth exploring further in your conversation, but for me, the idea of openness immediately makes you think of cooperation. So, for instance, today in the current geopolitical climate, when you look at conversations about public AI, there's a lot of talk could we build alliances? Could Europe build an alliance, for example, with Canada, with some Asian states like Singapore, which are doing very interesting work, or we could build a line on this public AI approach, and maybe not just align in terms, we like this idea, but really build things together. And this is, by the way, the huge promise of open source, that this is something that works globally, across borders. In this sense, it's not sovereign, it's very cosmopolitan. It's an idea that basically, for example, if Singapore funds a group of, let's say, programmers to build very good tools for building AI, there's no reason these couldn't be openly shared and reused in Europe and vice versa.